Hello and welcome to You Are the Magic podcast. I'm your host, Kylie James, and I'm really, really pleased to be talking with one of my dear friends, Suzie Goodall, today. Suzie and I met probably about 13 years ago through her husband and my partner. They used to work together, and it's been incredible watching her journey over this time. And so I'm really excited that she's joining us on today's podcast. Hi, Suzie, how are you going?
Hey Kylie, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. One, to catch up with you, and two, just to share my story with a budding women. See if we can work together and help each other on our journeys.
Oh, that sounds fantastic! And for our listeners out there today, we're on an audio setting for our podcast today because Susie's in the wonderful country area up in northern New South Wales. Is that right, Sue?
Yep, staying with my mum in a nice little town called Murwillumbah, where she's sitting on 100 acres. So my backdrop is this gorgeous green rolling plains, but the catch with that is that the internet connection isn't always as good as one would hope.
Absolutely. And you know what? This is where we make things work, don't
Yeah,
we? And that's how we roll as business owners. So, or just, I think women in general, I think we're pretty good at solving problems.
that's it. Adapt, improvise, and overcome. They've been three words that I've been living my life by lately.
Oh, perfect. Tell us a little bit more about that, Sue. Tell us, actually, let's start from the beginning. If you want to share just your story, from, when you started on your journey, that would be great. I think the listeners will love to hear it.
Yeah, thanks, Kylie. Yeah, so when I finished school, I was very keen to get into the sporting area, but I didn't think I was good enough to go into phys ed and things like that. So nursing was still hospital based. So I trained as the PA hospital and came out as a registered nurse, and then everything I started doing was sports orientated. And I thought, well, one of my goals was to travel with an Australian team somewhere, and nobody's going to take a nurse away. But what if I were that had a nursing background? So that's kind of how I got into physio, and lo and behold, I asked and did quite well. And then I think 2 years out, I got my Hockey Australia. I went away with the Hockey Roos. I was only years out of physio. And then it just kind of all started from there. And I think every year for the last 20 years, a couple of times I'm traveling overseas, looking after the men and the women's international hockey. And somewhere along the way, I started Powerhouse Physio. One physio room, myself and I, looking after everything. I did have my husband, who's an accountant, help me with some of the books in the initial stages, but that didn't last long because he wanted to deny every purchase, and we know what that's like. So
Yes.
I fired him for that, and I got my own bookkeepers. But I went from one physio room to 20 years later. I've got 6 rooms, a functioning gym that runs classes, rehab, and a couple of years ago we put in a recovery zone with ice baths, saunas, and compression boots. So, and going from just me to that, and to have sort of 11 of us working and still traveling internationally, you have to sit back at some point and go, well, I think I've actually accomplished what I said I would. Who would have thought I would have actually have done that? And yeah, here we are.
Oh, it's incredible. I think you mentioned earlier, I'm really living the dream, Carl. And how does that feel to actually sit back, reflect on it, and know that you actually are living your dream?
And I think it's hard to actually realize that too, Kylie, because you get so stuck in the middle of everything. You've got the day to day dramas, where somebody will call you and want something, or you're never truly not working. But I think it's when somebody talks to you and says, wow, look, I'm in awe of what you do, or, I can't believe I'm being treated by, an Australian physio, I'm just a mum, oh. And it's not until somebody else says it to you that it kind of clicks, because you just get caught up in the day-to-day stuff and you forget how far you've come. And I think it's really important to stop and remind yourself at some point that you're actually bloody brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're just still human, you have all the stuff that, you have to do just as a normal human being as well.
Yep,
So,
yep. And that's hard
yeah.
too, because I think you do need a really good support network around you, and often your partner doesn't always understand the intricacies of business and what you're doing. They might think, look, you just need to leave and come home, and you're like, well, you don't understand, I can't leave, because if I leave, then there's not enough physios, and if there's not enough physios, there's not enough patients, and so there's always something that'll bring you down. But we don't, we being me, and I think probably women in general, don't sit back and look at how far they've come, because a lot of other women too have to handle, family life and kids. And I wasn't blessed with children, but I still struggled just with a business without all the other stuff going on. I take my hat off to all the women that have families and kids and all that kind of stuff to deal with as well. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, look, similar to you, I don't have kids, and some days I think, oh my gosh, I've struggled to get myself out the door.
That's exactly it. So we don't we don't celebrate the wins, and I think it's really stop and celebrate the wins. Because it's just too easy to get caught up in the mundane things of day-to-day work life.
Yeah, yeah. A question that we sort of started talking a little bit earlier on was, what did you have to give up to have this level of success? Because obviously there's, two sides of the coin when you are chasing your dreams. What was it for you that you had to, give up?
Yeah, I think the went was me time. I didn't give myself time away from work, constantly working. The time that I would spend going out riding my motorbike hasn't happened. Lessons I had to let go. And then obviously, I didn't have time with my partner. And then the same thing, missing out on times with friends, because by the time you do get something you want to do is go out. So and I'd heard about it in the beginning when I'd started business, people telling me, oh, you've got to make sure you get a really good work-life balance. And I would sort of laugh and shake it off going, yeah, no problem. I know how to do that, which we don't. It's just you give up some of the things that you really love, which is unfortunate, because then you just get dragged into everything you do is work. And at some point you start to not enjoy what you're doing, when the whole reason you set out to do it in the first place was because you loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess this is where, when I sit back and watch the journey that that I've seen over the last 13 years, and obviously you've started before that, but you've definitely evolved over that time. And, there's been moments where you've been a bit flat, but then you've kind of picked yourself back up and run again. Like, tell us, what does it take to just, continuously evolve?
I think, well, discipline definitely.
Yeah.
And motivation does lack. Everybody will know that motivation lacks. And I think early on it was just hard work, but as I've gotten a little bit older too, Kylie, I'm in the health industry with nursing and physio. I've also been sucked into the whole worldly perimenopause and those issues as well, and your motivation really drops off when stuff like that happens. So I'm suffering with a lot of things that everyday women are suffering for. I have to pick myself up and run a business, and I think for me for that I have this inbuilt drive, this tenacity that I just have to keep going to accomplish something. And it's not that I don't think I'm good enough or anything. It's just this, I've got to keep going. What's the next best thing? I don't like being told I can't do something, whether people don't think I'm good enough or they just assume that I'm not capable. I don't like people telling me that, because I'll show them that I can. And for me that's something that I've just kept. I'm not somebody that would give up, and you just keep going, because there'll always be your ups and downs in business, but once you get on that high, it's such a good ride.
Absolutely, it is. All the, you get a great review from a customer, or someone, you, tells you that you're doing a great job, or you hit a milestone from a financial perspective.
Yep.
These are the moments that you're like, wow, this is awesome. it's the moments that you're not sharing or that you don't see behind a business that, you know, they're the bits that, you kind of, you need your people around you really to kind of help you keep going.
Yeah, and that support network is really, really important. And I think between my sister and my husband and my friends that, wherever I go, work always comes up. And I remember this conversation in the car with my husband, Gary. We were talking away and he's like, can we just not talk about work? Let's talk about something else. And there was this deathly silence for a couple of minutes. And he's like, well, have you got nothing else to talk about? And I'm like, well, I don't do anything else. And I think that was a reality check for me too, that, I was so self-absorbed in work that I did have to step away a little bit. But it is hard to keep the momentum going, especially as we're getting a little bit older and we have all the hormonal fluctuations that go with it. It's a real thing, and it's a real thing that we have to deal with, and something that I guess I've been dealing with personally, also with patients and gym goers, because our gym has a lot of older women coming through, or middle-aged to older women coming through, and I find that often my own experience to these women, really helps, because they see that this businesswoman is struggling with the exact same things I am. Oh my goodness, so it's a bit of a good reality check that, we're all normal beings and we all need some sort of support network. And often women are great talking to each other.
Absolutely. I remember when I was starting to go on the journey of, opening up my own business and everything, and you and I had a bit of a chat about that. And it just felt so refreshing and safe to talk to somebody who was going through the same emotions, the same, questioning themselves, or whatever it was at the time, but someone to say it's going to be okay.
Yep.
Just keep going. Just put that one foot in front of the other, and you're going to be great sometimes, and then not the others. And this is where you need to lean into people.
Yep.
And that conversation that we had, and this was probably 4 or 5 years ago now, just meant a lot to me. So thank you so much for being there to champion others and for sharing your story too.
And look, we're not always going to get it right, and we learn more from the things we get wrong, the things that we stuff up. And I've had plenty of stuff ups along the way. I mean, I've had, I remember a few years ago I had 4 physios all leave within a couple of months of each other for other opportunities and interstate, and it was me, and I was like, oh my goodness. And I remember, ringing my business coach at the time, bawling my eyes out, going, what the hell do I do? And he was like, oh, this is a great opportunity. And I'm like, stuff your opportunity, I didn't sign up for this. What am I doing? And I think I came pretty close to, throwing the towel in at that point. But I guess, once you sit back, take a breath, and you think, okay, this is an opportunity. At this point, I'm going to move away from contractors and I'm going to move into employees. Here's a new, something new to do. And then it got a little bit exciting because I changed the model of how we were doing things. But again, we're going to learn more from, from the mistakes we made. And the one thing that along the way too is that regret hurts more than failure. I don't ever want to get to the point, and this was something that good old Henry Palaszczuk had told me when I was in year 8. He'd made this comment, and my husband, because I live my life by it, and it was Henry Palaszczuk saying, never get to the point in life where you say those 3 little words, if only I. If only I'd given it a shot, or if only I just worked a bit harder. And that's what I would attest to me being where I am now, because I don't want to get to that point where I said, oh, if only I'd had a go and tried it. Because even if you tried and failed, you still had a go, right? Whereas, 20 years later, if you hadn't even started, the regret of going, where could I have been now if I'd done that? So, that's kind of my motto, if only I, and, I don't want regrets because I didn't give it a crack.
Yeah. Is there, I guess regret's one thing for sure. Is there anything that you're afraid of?
Well,
Because that's obviously what tends to stop people.
yeah, and look, I would still say I'm afraid of failure. I don't want people to think, oh, she's not very good at what she does. I'm very much a people person, and I have been guilty of being a people pleaser, I think, by saying yes. And I think if there's some words of wisdom I can give to all the women, it's okay to say no, because we so often want to accommodate everybody and be something to everybody because our business wants to stay on top of everything. And if I say yes to everything, they'll see that I'm on top of everything and accommodating, but it's all to our own detriment. So, we have to learn to say no.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. That's something that's been a massive learning for me over the years. Is I didn't know how to say no, and if I did, there was this massive guilt
Yep.
around it, and it's we just need to actually be a lot kinder to ourselves and actually just say no.
Yeah, and it's hard to do because you want to be everything to everyone because you think that that's what makes you a good business person. But, it's not. And sometimes you just have to step away to realize that because, suddenly you start saying no and looking after yourself. You actually, become more refreshed and have better ideas, and then you're more creative. And look, that came, a few years ago for me, Kylie, where I actually stepped away, which was really hard. We'd been going for, I think, would have been 17 years at that point. My husband had tried 3 times to get me to a month break to step back. I was at a time where I just brought on a couple of new physios. The gym wasn't doing. We were thinking, what do we do? And I took 3 months back with this new zest. I took over the gym fully. I had the idea to put in a recovery zone, and things just went next level. So sometimes taking that step back is what gives you the momentum to go the next level.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely love that. The whole walk away, take a break, and come back, and your creativity comes
Yeah.
back, your innovation comes back. And for me, what comes back is your intuition.
Yeah, for sure. And it's hard because, I assume a lot of businesswomen are like this. I mean, Powerhouse is my baby. It has always been my baby. And if I step away, happen, but, to be honest, the times that I have stepped away, the business has thrived very well without me. And, I think that shows, one of the biggest things that you can do is have a really good team of people around you. And it's not necessarily about their skill, it's about the culture that you install in your team. And I'm, I really want my team to know that they're a team. They're not my staff. We're a team. And I mean, one of the things that does make my job or my career a lot easier is people that I have working for me, they're serious. We have such good going on in the clinic. We do a lot of social media posts and, getting 3,000 hits on Reels because of the team members have just been following the latest trend on TikTok, and it's hilarious. And one of our values at work is a mateship ourselves and our clients. And you see it every day that when your team are coming in and living up to the value came up together with, and your clients are noticing, geez, it must be a fun place to work here because you guys seem to be having so much fun. It's like, well, they can see that we're all living our values. And that's something that's really important for me, making sure that you get the right team, the right bums in the right seat, so to speak.
Absolutely. I think, if I go and put my HR hat on, everything you're saying is just music to my ears. Culture, camaraderie, a bit of fun still happening. This is how you build successful businesses. And for me, people is critical because if they're happy at work, your customers are going to be happy, and then the business is actually going to make money.
Yeah, exactly. And look, it took me a while to get there. I was very much a contractor model prior to the last few years where I thought, oh, if I just get guys come in and they work as a contractor or I just do their bit and go, if they don't have any clients, I don't pay them, this should be really good. The difference, for their, as it worked for us was that the contractors were as nice and were, they didn't have, I guess, a drive to take the business to the next level. They just would come in, do their bit and go. They didn't have anything invested. Whereas when you have an employee, they're invested in their time. And that's what I think has taken us to the next level these last couple of years, because I switched from the contractor model to, to the employee model. And it's worked out so much better for me.
Yeah, that's so great to hear. I'm so happy for you. What's next for Suzie Goodall? Is it, more Powerhouse? Is it travel? Is it rest time? Like, what's next for Suzie?
Oh man, and this is a conversation that we've been having for a while. I think because my husband Gary's pretty keen to start looking on. Oh, is it too soon to retire? Is it too soon to retire? And I'm not in that space. I think the amount of hours I still work. I think I would roll over and die if I actually stopped working. But I think for me the next step is again, I'm telling everybody else to be kinder to themselves, but for me, to practice what I preach. I currently treat twice a week, and then my Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays are ideally admin days or some time off. But I think the one thing is finding a little bit more me time. So I've had the motorbike serviced. I've taken it for a spin last week, and Fridays are going to be my Suzie day, where I jump on the bike and go somewhere, and don't actually go into work. So I'm trying to let go just that little bit more, because the team have it. They're in control. And I really want to step back without having. I just don't want to control. Just see where this leads. Being a lady of leisure, I'm not sure what that looks like, and I'm not sure I'm ready to undertake that yet.
No, but it gives you this, I guess dipping your toe in the water and having that day where you can just have that space to yourself. You just then can, maybe that leads into, more holidays overseas with Gary, or, something different.
Yeah, and I think I just have to start small, obviously, and taking that 3 months off a couple of years ago was brilliant, and we had 5 weeks off recently. We were overseas as well, and again the business thrived without me. If you have the right people with the right culture, um, you know things will continue to thrive without you. And if you values in your team around you, then you're just going to go on to more and more success. So I can't stress, certainly when that has a team behind you, then the importance of making sure you've got that right team that you can have with, but that they've got your back. It makes it so much easier to step away.
Yeah, I love this for you, Suzie. I love where your thinking is going, and also I just can see more and more for you, and not necessarily even from a business sense, but just from a life sense. Just that, ultimately at the end of the day, we just want to be happy. We want to be happy with, turning up to work. We want to be happy at home. We want to be happy in, traveling, whatever it is that we want to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what do we mark our success as? What does success mean to everybody? Is it mean you've got a bank full of money, or is it that you've got the freedoms? And look, one of the things that that I've learned throughout business coaching and stuff, the idea of a 4 and 40 lifestyle. Work 4 days a week, and you have work 4 days a week, 40 weeks of the year, right? Which means the rest of the time is off. And that's kind of where I guess I'm striving, 4 and 40 at the moment. And then you just start to peel away. And I guess success really, it's whatever you make it. If you've had a plan, you've got to stop and make sure that you've hit your plan. And if by all intents and purposes, if my goal was to, become a physio and travel with an Australian team, I could probably shut up shop and die happy now
Yeah.
because I've done it. And yeah, I think just reevaluating, because, life is this, life and business is this, and there is actually a book out by, Simon Sinek about the infinite game. It's, we often talk about, oh, if I can just get to this next level, it'll be fine. But the problem is when you get to that next level, there's something else. So we've got to think that work and business and life, it's this ongoing game where there's lots of different levels that we're just continually moving through. It's not going to magically stop when you hit that, 100K in the bank or something like that. So I guess changing your perspective and just trying to enjoy things, because life really is short, and there's more to life than just work. It is hard to accept that sometimes, but I think you do have to stop and smell the roses on the way.
Yeah, I love this. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and your journey and your learnings, because it's been beautiful to hear. Like I said, I've witnessed it. It's been a privilege to witness just the last 13 years, let alone, you know, seeing and hearing everything that you've achieved over the whole course of your career. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
No, thanks, Kylie. I've enjoyed it, and I mean, it was sad you left Canberra, and this is probably the first time we've actually had a little while to catch up. But yeah, look, it's been a ride. Sometimes wild, sometimes fun, sometimes heartbreaking, but the moments that define us and power us on to do the next thing. But there are a lot of very smart, intelligent women out there, and I think the one thing that they forget is that there are often people looking at them in awe, wondering how they do what they do while you're self-doubting yourself. And that's something to remember.
Absolutely, 100%. And, if we can all acknowledge that we bring something special to the world just becomes magic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I have one more question before we finish the podcast episode today, and that is, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give to our listeners so they can take whatever the step is that they need to take to chase their dreams?
One piece. Oh, goodness me.
Yeah, if you've got more than one, that's okay, but
Well, I mean, the one thing that comes to mind, it's if only I. Don't ever get to that point in your life where you go, if only I had taken that chance, right? Like I said, regret hurts more than failure. That's my biggest thing, is look after yourself. We alluded to the whole perimenopause thing previously, but you need to take time for yourself. You need to get outside and exercise. You need to get in the gym and do something, get that bone going, sort out those hormones, because all of that kind of stuff will, what you do in your business. So yeah, if only I, and look after yourself.
Two fantastic pieces of advice. They're, if, for those who are listening out there, I think they're two great pieces of wisdom. Now, how can we find you, Suzie? How can listeners find you?
Well, obviously, we're in Canberra, but we're happy to see that wants to fly domestic. So we're Powerhouse Canberra is located in Lyneham in Canberra. We have 6 treatment rooms. We've got a gym with various different classes, perfect strength classes for women over in that perimenopausal state. It's also a great gym and space for rehab following any injuries, and we've got an awesome recovery zone with a couple of ice baths, some infrared saunas and some compression boots. So we've got a great website there that has all the information, powerhousecanberra.com.au, and we'd love to help people on their journey as well to health and well-being, and as well if they've got any little injuries or niggles, because I can tell you I've got a great team of physios even if I'm not there.
Excellent. And on Instagram, I've seen a few little shenanigans, like you said. So is it Powerhouse Canberra?
Yeah,
they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. On Facebook, we have a lot of fun. We do a lot of team challenges on there as well. But if you're after a good laugh, it's somewhere to go and check us out.
Oh, fantastic. To our listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed hearing the wisdom that Suzie has brought to us today. Remember, you are the magic. You've got everything inside of you that you already need. Go out, chase those dreams, and we'll see you next week. Take care.